6.86. We have a new hero. We have the Arc Warden. No Pit Lord yet, but the Arc Warden, I don't know. I don't know the impact that it'll have. Like, seems like a pretty hard hero to play, and just the I don't know. The abilities don't seem like it's like super game changing. So Flux infuses a lone enemy with its rolling volatile energy, slowing its movement speed and dealing damage over time. So it's the effect is muted if another unit is near the enemy unit is near the target. So I'm guessing like this really only works in the jungle or someone messaged me. In the jungle or it's basically ganking. Like I guess Arc Warden has to be a ganker. And the oops. And magnetic field generates a circular distortion field of magnetic energy that grants evasion and attack speed bonuses to allied heroes and buildings within. So good for defending, attack speed bonuses to allied heroes and buildings within, and generally like a support spell. Then Spark Wraith summons a Spark. So the question I have about Spark Wraith is how many Spark Wraiths can you summon at once? So there's sort of like little bombs. I'm guessing a little bit. You just kind of place them around in the jungle, and when the enemy hits them, I'm guessing you might get some vision or something. Or it seems like good for detecting enemy ganks when you're in your safe lane, hard lane, anywhere really. Tempest Double is really neat because it resets all your items onto cooldown, and you'll basically have double your abilities and double your items. So I already saw some theory crafting on Reddit where they're talking about the Arc Warden like double Dagon kind of thing. So it's that is the that seems like the neatest ability of Arc Warden so far because you get anything like Abyssal Blade, double E Blade, everything like that becomes double. So that's really neat. Zeus has an Arcana. I'm just gonna skip through some of the stuff that doesn't affect the game as much. The desert terrain is really neat. Supposedly all the creeps have new models for them, and they basically remade the whole map. So it's not just a skin; it's an entirely newly made map, used to imitate like the old map. But like everything is going to be the same, but they had to rebuild it from scratch or replace all the models basically. So looking forward to trying out the desert pack. See here, I don't really play Coliseum, so I can't really talk about that. This is really neat. The basically all the Dota buff stuff is going to be incorporated into the client. So I know Dota Buff itself is a company. They charge money. They have employees. So this is definitely going to negatively affect their business, and it'd be neat to see where this goes. And then let's see here. We have shopping in them. Okay, let's look at the map changes. New items. Okay, just gonna scroll down. A bunch of stuff. So Arcane Rune. This is an important part. Causes all spell cooldowns to be reduced by 30% and mana cost to be reduced by 50%. Lasts for 50 seconds. So, finally, something like the DD. I always found that as like a spellcaster, something like the DD really doesn't do anything. You always be like, oh, there's a DD. Hey, call your razor over or something. I don't know. To use your DD. So this is sort of like the opposite of the DD, where basically if you're a spellcaster, this is amazing, right? It's really neat to see that put in there. Some other changes which aren't too important. You do have the random draft being into ranked matchmaking, so that's going to make playing ranked a whole lot neater. I'm gonna skip through some of these. Like I noticed that a lot of the creeps in the jungle did get buffs. See, like or increased from 2 to 3. Persia reduced from 5 to 3. Like most of them are buffs. So I see this as a jungling is a little bit harder, but I see this more as a Chen buff. See, like Ancient Black Dragon got a Fireball, which I'm not sure when it'll actually use it by itself, but as a Chen, this is wonderful. Like all these. It's great. Adding the patrol command is something that is kind of neat because if you can time the distance right, you're able to actually stack creep camps automatically. I saw a thing where just using the right click, if you set the distance right, obviously you have to walk like really far away, like walk back to your fountain or something. But if you have a creep and if you know the movement speed of it, you just have to do some testing. You can actually set it on patrol so that it just successively pulls on the 2 minute mark. So it's neat what you can do with the patrol command. And also, we saw, I forgot who played it, but someone had an illusion that was patrolling basically back and forth on the Radiant side in their jungle. You know that little up ramp, the little high ground there, uh, like from the rune spot and from like the mid lane. They were patrolling there to check for smoke ganks because if the patrolling unit's path gets disrupted, then there's a smoke. So something like this is neat so that you can do it without actually having to right click multiple times. Some minor changes, but terrain wise, there are a lot of changes. I'm really excited. I want to see like an actual map, but terrain wise, it seems like it's really a lot to read. But I think the biggest changes are that the warding spots, a lot of the high ground warding spots are going to have pathing going to them. So what I see the implications are that if you're a melee support, say like you're an Omni Knight, I was going to say Paladin. If you're an Omni Knight and you place Sentry Ward up there and you see it as a melee support, you'd be like, oh, like sniper, come over here. We have to deward this, right? So now you're actually able to path up there, well, like walk up there, place the sentry, deward. So that's definitely a plus. Another thing that I know Valve has been trying to get rid of is the fact that you can say force staff or use Earth Spirit and kick or use Punch Hook. Well, Punch Hook they got rid of, but they've been really trying to get rid of things where you get stuck. You throw it like heroes up onto the high ground and then they get stuck and then you just like attack them and they die. So I think adding all this pathing will reduce that aspect of the game, and I think Valve has been working towards that for quite a few patches now. So we also have a lot of new drinking spots. So especially I noticed in the Radiant, I don't know where it is right now, but off the top of my head, I know that in the Radiant side, at your T1 tower, to the right of it, in that tree area, they're going to add a bunch of drinking spots, and I think that they're actually adding a ward spot there too. Um, it's going to be hard to find. There's a lot of text, but they're going to be adding a warding spot there. There's going to be a lot of drinking pathing going on there, so that's really neat. Also on the Dire side, at the secret shop on the left lane, there's going to be better pathing for basically from the secret shop going upwards. Because right now there's just like one path, and then you get stuck there, and then you die basically. If they come in, like they just trap you, right? So I'm glad that they're adding more juking, adding more pathing. They're gonna add a path in the Radiant T2. You know that line of trees, kind of you have like that warding spot, like that high spot, and then you have that path of trees, and then you have your T2 tower. So they're gonna add a path right in the middle of it, because right now like that thing is crazy when you're on one side of it and you see someone on the other side of it and you're just like you have to walk around a lot. So I'm glad they're getting rid of like weird situations like that. Adding a bit more pathing. A major change as well is that they're adding a hard camp on each of the off lanes. Right next to kind of like close to where the ancients are, like in the secret shop area. They're gonna add a hard camp. So that's good because as an off laner, like you basically have to choose if you're in the safe lane, you have access to your jungle. If you're in the hard lane, you have no access to your jungle. So this is good that like if you get pushed or something, or things are unfavorable and you want to go back and there's no way you can farm the lane, maybe you can do some some pulls. You can do a lot of stuff with the hard camp farm it. Otherwise, you only have your ancients, right? So that's a good thing, I think. They're also adding so the radiant side, the T2 mid tower, they're moving it back a little bit. So now you can smoke, and so as like if you're from going from dire, you can actually smoke into the middle lane. So right now, if you're on radiant side, you can smoke, go into dire side, and go into the jungle, and you won't get detected by the tower, right? But as a dire going into the radiant jungle, you basically get detected unless you go through the ramp at the rune spot. So they're moving that tower back a little bit, just basically shifting some stuff around so that you can still smoke, making it a little bit more fair for both sides. Okay, yeah, map changes. There's a bunch of stuff, but until I get the map, that's all I have for now. There's a bunch of stuff. I'm excited to see the map though. It's gonna be sick. Okay, so some of the highlights. I made a lot of notes. Uh, there's quite a lot of neat changes though. Alchemist got a minor Grievel's Greed bounty nerf. So from 5 times to 3 times at level 1. So right now, Alchemist always, I mean, even at 3 times, Alchemist should always get level 1 rune, or like 0 minute rune. But with this, it's a slight nerf to it. I'm gonna skip through the ones that I don't think are like they're important, but not. It didn't catch my eye. Bristleback got a Aghanim Scepter. I really like this. It's really neat. So basically, nasal goo is no longer targeted. Instead, it applies goo to all enemies around you in a 600 AOE when casted. So basically, like your close ray, but nasal goo. So right now, like playing Bristleback for myself anyway, like later on in the game after you don't have mana problems anymore, you're basically walking around, you're right-clicking heroes, you're casting your Q on heroes, but the whole time my left like ring finger is spamming W. They're just constantly nonstop spamming W. Like right, and with the Aghanim Scepter, basically your Q and W are just gonna be spamming the whole time, and you're just gonna be right-clicking, walking around right-clicking heroes. Like, I like it. It's really neat. It adds to that bristleback effect, but takes a little bit of skill away. Not that bristleback is hard hero to play anyway, but I do like it. It's actually kind of neat. I wrote that Chen is buffed because of all the jungle creeps. Yeah, in general, there are some buffs. The base strength increase, penitence, but I think the jungle creeps buff for a good Chen player at least is going to be a huge thing. Clockwork has circle cogs now. So instead of rectangles, so I'm not sure the exact implications of it. Maybe blocking pathways and stuff like that, it might not be as effective. But right now, I mean, like it is kind of clunky the way it is, So um, I'm glad to see it being a circle. Uh, I'm excited to see what kind of implications it has. But I think that was kind of neat. DP. So it's removed from Captain's mode because they reworked Witchcraft into Spirit Siphon. So Spirit Siphon creates a spirit link between you and the target, draining 20 plus blah 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 max HP and slowing movement. So it's sort of like it's like a Pugna's life siphon. But in this case, I really like that it's percentage based so that it scales well into the late game. There's actually a bunch of changes that are percentage HP based that I really like that it can scale into the late game. And yeah, it has charges. The charges don't stack though. 45-second replenish, 1, 2, 3, 4 charges. So you'll walk in, you can cast them on 4 different heroes. And yeah. So, but the thing is, so I guess you'll have your exorcism up, and I guess like the more people you cast on, the tankier you'll become as well because you are draining their HP, and their movement speed gets slowed. So I'm interested to see whether or not DP can actually do it though, because 300, cast range 500, buffer distance 300. It's not actually that much distance. So I feel like if you cast it since your movement is slowed, people will likely focus on you. So I'm interested in whether or not DP will actually be able to tank that kind of damage. The right thing to do would be to focus down the DP, I think. But we all know like if Exorcism comes back and stuff like that, DPs and like from the life drain, I mean, she could be draining a ton of life and be super tanky. So yeah, I'm interested to see it in action and see whether or not DP will become like this tanky thing that's disrupting and causing everyone 18% slowing movement speed. Doom. Doom's level death got replaced with Infernal Blade. So passive autocast attack ability. Mini sends for 0.3 seconds and applies 4-second burn that deals 40 plus percentage max HP as damage. So again, I really like the percentage max HP. I think, a lot of the older designed heroes don't have that. It doesn't scale well into the game, and it's good to see that happening. The problem with this is that level death was the only ability from Doom that allowed you to pop the Lincoln Sphere so that you can doom someone properly. So with level death gone, you won't be able to pop the Lincoln Sphere. So, that's overall a nerf. That's a pretty big nerf to Doom, I think. But also interested to see how the Infernal Blade goes. Other stuff. I'm going to talk about all the Aghanim Scepter upgrades. So Aghanim Scepter for Drow Ranger now, so it'll basically hit and then split into two and hit two more other units. So it'll split into two and it'll hit 2 units for 50%. And they carry all attack modifiers. So if you have like a Mask of Madness or whatever, you'll still get lifesteal on those arrows, or cold arrow. So something about the Aghanim Scepter upgrades. I'm noticing a lot of I don't think that Aghanim Scepter upgrade is game changing. A lot of heroes have game changing Aghanim Scepter upgrades, but in this case, it's not. And I'm starting to think that it's supposed to be. So I'm sorry. So I was reading Dirk's message. So I think the Aghanim Scepter upgrade, like the not as game changing ones, might be a result of Alchemist being able to give Aghanim Scepter. So right now, I mean, even after that patch with the Alchemist, a lot of nobody really plays him like that. Like when you're playing Alchemist, you're still playing him as the number one carry. But I think Ice Frog might have intended for Alchemist to just become like a farming support that farms Aghanims for everyone, and I personally want to see that. So I think like stuff like this, like if Alk is a support and farming, and you have other carries on the team, for him to be able to throw a scepter to everyone is a big deal and a game changer. Everyone gets online a lot faster. Just everyone becomes more like even the stat upgrades are great. Or even if Alchemist is carrying, like in the late game, for everyone to have some kind of scepter upgrade, I think is just great for the late game. It really scales well to go past your 6 slots. Earth Spirit has been enabled in Captain's mode. The Geomagnetic Grip can now only affect pull allies by using Scepter. So I think that's a major nerf, because with Geomagnetic Grip, before you could make your opponent into a Stone Remnant, pull them back, and then kick them away for like 1,000 or whatever range. So now, like, to kick them, you have to walk up to them, right? And you can only, it's hard to kick. I guess you could kick backwards now, but you still have to walk up. Before, I think it was very, very disruptive in that any time you see like some physical carry or something, make them a stone, pull them, kick them, and they're just gone for a while. Like they're actually pretty far away, and in that time you can fight 4v5. So I think that is a major nerf to Scepter Earth Spirit. Earth Spirit. Next one is Void. So Void's backtrack got replaced with Time Dilation. Time Dilation applies debuff to all nearby enemies. 650 AoE, cause them to on all abilities. The cooldowns no longer progress while they have this debuff. Those enemies and whatever by each locked ability. So the question I have for this that I'm not really sure is like I'm pretty sure it applies to each hero, but so say you have 5 heroes and they say, for example, they all have 4 cooldowns, right? Like would it become a freeze basically? Like when you have over 10 locked abilities, is it the total or is it per hero? Um, like I can see it being very strong, but at the same time, no, you know what? It must be per hero because you can't have 100%. This is too long, right? Okay, so I'm gonna say like it's probably per hero. So if your hero has 4 abilities, and this guy is level 4 time dilation, you'll get 40% attack speed and movement speed slow for 9 seconds. 9 seconds is pretty long, and yeah, none of your it's basically like a silence. Like you'll be able to cast it once, and then it'll be like a silence because there's no cooldown progress. Someone like Bristleback would get completely rocked by this. You won't be able to cast anything for 9 seconds after your first cast. So, but someone with a big ult, it doesn't really matter. If you have like a 2-minute ult cooldown, like you can still cast it, right? Yep. Okay. Yeah, it's a bunch of stuff that changed with him too. Let's see here. Time Walk undergoes damage taken. Oh yeah. So that I think the Time Walk change. This one is particularly interesting. Like the range is also lower, which is important, but the fact that it can actually time like glimpse back to 2 seconds and not and revert that damage, kind of like how Weaver does, is an interesting mechanic because Void is really up in your face. So you fight for a bit. Say someone Laguna blades you and you almost die. Time walk away. You're Laguna bladed suddenly. So very interesting. Next we have Huskar. Huskar. Berserker's Blood linearly. So that's just like a quality of life thing, I think. But the fact that the magic resistance from Berserker's Blood decreased quite a lot, right? 42% to 20%, 84% to 50%. That's almost half. Well, over half for level 1 and less than half for level 4. But that's a very big nerf. Huskar, people have been saying Huskar is really strong. So you can see Invoker starts level 1 with level 1 Invoke at the beginning of the game. So there was a guy that said he played a lot of Invoker on Reddit, and in that last patch there were already a lot of Invoker changes, like given to him, and this basically, I think this sums it up. I think the only differences between his suggestions and the ones last patch were these ones, and now with this patch, we've basically followed every point that guy who played a lot of Invoker made. Like he basically did a theoretical proposal for Invoker changes, and this is basically it. I I think yeah, this is basically it. I think this is it. So this is good. You can start off the game already with a spell. Right now, as a level 1 Invoker, you actually literally can't do anything other than like, oh, I have some Wex or I have some Quas. So this is nice. You can cold snap at the beginning of the game and cast an EMP. Although cold snap is probably better level 1 move. So yeah, good to see that. Coddle. So Coddle's chakra magic has cooldown reduction, and that got buffed. So another interesting thing, though, I think the most interesting thing is that chakra magic now restores and increases mana capacity by the amount. So before you'd always wait for someone to cast a spell and then use chakra magic, but now it actually just it'll increase your mana capacity as well. So you can cast chakra magic on a full mana person, and then they can use their spells. So I really like that. It gives them a lot more flexibility in when use your spells. Kunkka. Kunkka I wrote that Ags Ghost Ship drags. So I think this is a strong buff. So the Aghanim Scepter buff to Kunkka is that the Ghost Ship drags enemies within 200 AoE to the crash site, but it starts from where you are instead of behind you. So I guess the distance is less because it lands in the same position as it normally would have. But I mean, it's very rare that someone would be behind you and you would cast it like that anyway. So I don't know if that means the ghost ship would travel faster to the destination because it has to travel less time. It's harder to dodge, maybe. They can still perform actions, but I think this is major. Like, because the ghost ship is pretty big, and 200 AOE like isn't that small. So if you have a bunch of heroes that are spread out, the ghost ship travels pretty far, right? So it's basically like a skewer, I guess. So yeah, pair that with a chronosphere, pair that with a black hole, pair that with anything. It's done already, so I think that's a very strong upgrade. Yep. So next we have the LC. Have some water. Okay, the Legion Commander. Legion Commander's Scepter now makes you and the target immune to all damage unless the source is between the duel participants. So, as a reminder, the last time in the last patch, or a few patches ago, I forgot when, they added an Aghanim Scepter upgrade to Legion Commander where you basically fight until one of you dies. So now it's a straight up one-on-one duel, which I think is pretty neat. I think it makes it like Legion Commander is a very strong hero by itself already, and it makes it like it's an actual duel. Otherwise, before it's really like a Berserker's Call, where it basically just stuns, it basically disables the enemy, and it's not really a duel because everyone is just gonna jump in. So I do like this scepter. Um, Life Stealer. I put major buff. So rage attack speed increase. Yeah, quite a lot too. 30 to 50, 80 to 80. But I mean, early on, Life Stealer, anyone who's played him in like recently, you'll feel that Life Stealer kind of needs a buff. He's kind of lackluster during games. So his early game is in like definitely better. Feast and Lifesteal increased from blah 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 to blah blah. It's a minor thing, but Infest cooldown also went from 175 50. So that means that you can heal a lot faster every 50 seconds, basically. You can use your like Lifestealer bombs a lot more. So I think this is a much needed sort of buff for Lifestealer. It's not that major, but pretty good. Lone Druid. Replace synergy with Savage Roar. So causes enemies in 325 AoE around you or your bear to run away to 20% with 20% movement speed for blah 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 seconds toward their fountain. So like all the enemies around you will just start running towards their fountain. So I find this kind of neat in that they're running slowed. So only with 20% movement speed. So they're not really gonna get that far away from you. It's like you're gonna be able to chase after them, which means it's basically this massive disable to anything in a 325 AoE. The fact that they are moving towards the fountain means that, if it creates some neat plays, say like, oh, your void has a chronosphere, say at radiant ramp near the rune, and you're fighting like right above that easy camp, then if you cast your roar, they'll run right into the chronosphere. So little things like that where it can create some kind of neat plays. Overall, seems to be pretty useful. It's basically a massive disable. Spirit Bear attack damage buff, rabid duration, major buff, and all buffs. So Spirit Bear, if you take a look, yeah, like 33 to 35, 45, 55, 65. So these are big buffs to the Spirit Bear. Well, for the attack damage anyway, but a lot of time you'll add attack speed stuff on your Spirit Bearer to proc the Entangle. So I think this is a pretty decent buff. Doubles the base damage. And Rabid, duration increase from 10 to 18 level. That's like 3 times as good. Double as good, level 1. So overall, like true form health bonus increase 600 to 900. That's about 50% increase, right? So yeah, overall, Lone Druid needed a buff, and here we go. Magnus is the next hero. I went past him. Oh, because of the Aghanim Receptor. So Empower becomes an allied hero aura. Its range goes for half value and causes him to deal splash damage around the target in 200 AoE. So yeah, basically everyone gets cleave. So I like it. Yeah, nothing to really add there. Like cleave is very powerful, even for ranged heroes. You have cleave, so very neat. Next, Impale Inspect Pache. Yeah, so next Impale duration increased. Not too much. I mean, level 1, you have like a 0.3, almost 0.3 increase. And my carapace went down. So, I think the only reason I highlighted Nyx was basically for Ryan. As I said, relevant to Ryan's interests. That's what I wrote. So it's very, very minor stuff, but relevant to Ryan's interests. Okay. Oracle. So no one knows how to play Oracle. Let's be real. But yeah, like basically because it's in captain's mode, everything got changed. Like a bunch of shit got rescaled. I don't really know what it means. I don't play Oracle. I don't really know how. But one big thing that got bolded is that False Promise no longer continuously dispels after initial cast, which is big because that before, when you're on False Promise, it'll continually dispel, say, like stuns and shit like that. So that's a major, major nerf to False Promise. A cool thing is Fortune's End, though, can now target allies and doesn't root or hurt the ally. It purges implies effect in the area. So that's kind of neat because that means if someone gets stunned, you can throw a Fortune's End and unstun them. So it's basically just a debuff spell on your allies. Yeah, but you can False Promise a lot more. Cooldown rescaled, and but the mana cost got decreased, so duration increased. I'd be interested to try the hero out now that it is in captain's mode, so it means it's like fully worked out. I don't know. Oracle's hard to play though. I don't know how to play him. I think Outworld Devour though is probably one of the reworks that I'm most excited about. Just find out how now. So reworked how Astral Imprisonment works. So now instead of stealing mana, it no longer steals intelligence. Sorry, not mana, intelligence. It no longer steals intelligence, but after the imprisonment, when it comes out, it does 400 area for 75, 152, 225, and 300 damage, magic damage. So that's a pretty big difference. And also, cooldowns have been rescaled and cast range increased 1, 2, 3, 4 to 4 for duration. And now Arcane Orb, instead of now steals 0, 1, 2, 3 intelligence per hit for 40 seconds. So I think that's pretty huge because, I mean, with decent attack speed, you can steal quite a lot of intelligence using like when you're attacking with Arcane Orb. And yeah, like also with Aghanim Scepter, I think this is a major buff to Aghanim Scepter. Like before using Aghanim Scepter, you'll just hard buff your own intel, right? But now, say you have 5 heroes clumped up. Like obviously this is best case scenario, but even if they're not very clumped up, it affects a 400 AoE area, right? But say the arc comes up, you have 5 heroes, right? Um, yeah, so like you cast your. So what the Aghanim Scepter does is that it throws everyone inside of the Saturn's Eclipse into astral imprisonment. So after you do that, everyone's gonna pop out and everyone's gonna deal 300 damage. So you have it also damages the target itself. So everyone's gonna take 1,500 magic damage, right? Like right away. And if you throw in a refresher orb with that, it's like instant 3,000 damage to everyone. So yeah, like you can land some pretty cool shit with the Outworld Devourer with like I guess you need a refresher orb and an axe, but I don't know. I've gone into games with that and been good. So and I do think the arcane orb stealing intel might be pretty neat though. I'm not sure exactly what the implications are, but you can really fight people with that. Yeah. So should be pretty good. Yeah, I think that's one of the changes I'm actually the most pumped. Pudge reworked Scepter on Pudge. So I think it applied rot before and that the dismember um heals you for the damage it does. But now that's just common. So it's definitely a buff to Pudge because the Ags upgrade of Dismember basically got it into the regular Dismember. It heals you for the damage it does. That's pretty neat. So now the Ags reduces cooldown of Meat Hook to 4 seconds and increases the damage from 360 to 475. It just makes your Meat Hook a little bit better. 4 seconds is a really short amount of time though. So interested to see how this works out. It's another one of those upgrades where I feel like if you have an elk on the team, throw it to the Pudge. Something like that. Not like one of those things, oh, I'm going to rush Ags. It doesn't seem like one of those changes, but definitely something in the late game. Hey, what can I do? Everyone has so much gold. Oh, you know what? Why don't you buy Pudge and Ags? Yeah, I think one of those things. Next up is Reki Maru. So rework permanent invisibility. So it basically got a one more ability because backstab got incorporated into permanent invisibility. They took away the HP regen from it, but um, I mean, it basically freed up a spell slot. Blink Strike is now back to basic ability without charges. Obviously, it can't be as strong as the alt version of Blink Strike, but this is really neat. Tricks of the trade. Ricky phases out of the world for up to 3, 4, 5 seconds, attacking every enemy from behind in a 450 area around him. He attacks once when phasing out, and then once per second while being phased out. So, so basically, he attacks it when you like trigger the move, and then you do it 3 times, 4 times, or 5 times. Um, so I'm just assuming you attack every enemy at once. Like at first, when I read it, I assumed it was sort of like an Omni Slash, and then I read that then once per second while being phased out. So obviously, if it's like an Omni Slash, you can't attack like once, like for one character, like 3 times, right? So because then that'd be very you basically I don't know. It's not a very strong alt, right? Because say you have a bunch of creeps, you end up attacking like 4 creeps. Can it? But it says attacking every enemy from behind, right? So I think it actually attacks every enemy in a 450 area. I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, that is pretty neat. I'm interested to see how it works. Um, yeah. Also, you're getting you're phasing out. So like for the 3, 4, or 5 seconds, right? So enemies will be able to see you and they will be able to attack you. So initially I was thinking, oh, you know what? It seems kind of stupid, but it might be worth getting a pairing it with a glimmer cape, even though you already have invisibility. But then you can cast the glimmer cape and then use tricks of the trade. and because Glimmer Cape I think takes like a 0.4 second um like fade time or whatever. So then he won't get focused. But again, I don't really think it's worth the investment in a Glimmer Cape because as a rookie, you do want to maximize your damage. We'll see how that works out. Um, Sand King has a reworked scepter on the Sand King. Doubles Burrow Strike, cast range, and plus Caustic Finale poison. No longer grants previous scepter bonus. So another one of those things where I think it's one of those Alk Ag upgrades. I think that's like a. I feel like that's a recurring theme where a bunch of characters, a bunch of heroes got some Alk Ag upgrades, whereas like certainly some of the Ags upgrades here are like say like Kunkas, right? Those are actually good upgrades for Ags, whereas other ones seem like they're incremental changes that aren't game breaking, and you probably want to prioritize other items before. So I feel like those are Alk Ags. So this is another one of them. Let's see here. Shadow Fiend also added as Scepter. Oh, this is a really long list, guys. There's a lot of changes. Patch. Okay, I'm gonna take a short break and just check my Twitch chat. Sup, y'all? Oh my god, so good. When it's donate button, y'all. I'm right. Dark message. Chef's Kenji's message. Isn't it talking about allied heroes? Not who's this guy? I think it's only on allied heroes. Let me go back to Earth Spirit here to answer your questions. Spirit. Can only pull allied heroes. Yeah, so it can only pull allied heroes using the scepter. So it can't pull enemy heroes using the scepter anymore. So that's what I mean by just like you can cast your Storm Remnant on enemies, pull them back in, and pull them farther back. So basically, that can't happen anymore. You can like save your own teammates, your allies, but you can't do it to disrupt the enemy. Basically, I find where I am. This is very long. All right, let's keep it up. Just wanted to be able to take a break and answer some questions from the Twitch chat. Okay, so now we're back, and next up is the Shadow Fiend. The Shadow Fiend. Requiem of Soul Waves now return back to Shadow Fiend, dealing 40% damage on the way back. All of the damage on Requiem does to heroes on its way back then heals you. So that's strong. I mean, essentially it does 40% more damage, and it gives a heal. So I think that is a pretty big upgrade. Shadow Fiend, worth mentioning. Definitely worth getting, I think. Okay, Silencer got reworked. So Curse of the Silent got replaced with a new ability, Arcane Curse. Okay, so Arcane Curse targets an area, causes damage over time. So basically, okay, I'm just gonna explain it. So what Curse of the Silent did was that you could cast a spell in an AOE, and the heroes in that AOE took damage over time for I think 12 seconds or 7 seconds. I think it's the same. I'm not sure if it's the same. It took damage over time for a certain amount of seconds. But then if they cast a spell, then it'll stop the damage over time. So they're actually encouraged to cast a spell right away. And but if you have last word, another spell of silencer is last word. And what that does is that it actually silences and damages the hero either when the last word ends or when they cast a spell. So that was sort of the combo where, they have to choose because they want to end the damage over time, but they also take the damage right away, kind of thing. So I actually like this change because now silencer really kind of silences more. Because in this case, you don't want to cast a spell. You can cast a spell, but what that'll do is that it still does the damage over time, but what it'll do is it'll reset the duration. And also, if you're silenced, the debuff will pause. So no damage is taken and no time elapses for the arcane curse. So even if I cast both of them at the same time and say Bristleback uses the move, he gets hurt and silenced. Arcane Curse still applies, no damage is taken, and then he'll come back, and the duration obviously got reset because he used a spell. So something like this means that Bristleback or someone has to not cast anything for 7 seconds, otherwise it'll get reset and it'll keep taking the damage over time. So I actually really like this change. It really makes Silencer more of a Silencer rather than, oh, I'm going to cast a spell on you, and now you have to cast the spell right away or else you'll get damage. Very cool stuff. Clears the Wisdom no longer a unique attack modifier. Cool. You can add some lifesteal to it. You can clean to it. It'll hop on. TA. Refraction is now always visible. I think that is a pretty big change to the way that you play against Templar Assassin. It's kind of a worth mentioning change. Who played a Tidehunter added a scepter. So Gushnet is now a traveling wave for 1800. 1800 is pretty big. So, I mean, again, I wouldn't rush a scepter so that I can get the gush. Like definitely, Blink Dagger or anything is more important than this AOE, this big gush. But another one of those Alk Ags upgrades. I think personally think. I don't know. It might be game changing, but like, what do I know, right? But I don't think. I think this is an Alk Ags upgrade. Personally. Tiny Craggy Exterior. So Craggy Exterior now triggers it on attacks landing rather than on start. So that means that Tiny still has 10 HP. You shoot him, and Tiny will still die. So I think before you would like trigger the attack and you'll get like stunned right away, or like the mini stun. So yeah, this is good. It's a nerf. Ursa. Ags upgrade allows you to cast your ultimate while disabled and reduces cooldown from whatever to whatever. It's a big cooldown, and you can cast it while disabled. I don't know. I don't know how effective that is. Like really, I mean the cooldown is reduced quite a bit, but I guess you are a lot stronger. To me, when I read this, it did feel like an Alk Ags upgrade, but I don't know. Like the cooldown is like halved, which means you're effective like over 50% of the time, which it could be pretty big. I won't just brush it off. VS. There's an added scepter bonus to Vengeful Spirit, so that now when Vengeful Spirit dies, a Vengeance Illusion will actually pop into place, and the Vengeance Illusion does 50% damage, and takes 150% damage, but you're able to use all your abilities until the VS will revive. So I think that's really neat. Basically, you never die. Like if you're just using your spells and stuff like that, you can. It's just great, especially since VS a lot of time will do some like huge nether swap and then die. So now, like usually that sacrifice is worth it because I mean you're just a VS, and if you can pop some like LC or something that's like massive, and your team can take down the LC because of your swap, then I mean it's worth the sacrifice. And now after your sacrifice, you'll have a Vengeance Illusion, where you can still play the game. So I think that's a really neat mechanic. Winter Wyvern. So Winter Wyvern is a pretty major change to the Winter's Curse. So now Winter Curse's primary and secondary units are now immune to all damage from their enemies. So right now, as it is, I know there's like damage resistance and stuff like that, but it's basically like this huge like AOE disable where you use your Winter's Curse and everyone can just attack. Your team can just attack the enemy now, but they're going to be immune to all damage from their enemies. So it's really a single target spell where also you clump the units together. B, you take out a single hero. You isolate it. So secondary units now have 50 attack speed bonus, and AOE increased, cooldown also increased, duration increased. So I think it's a buff to picking off individual heroes, but it's a nerf in terms of disabling, in an AOE. But at the same time, I mean, everyone gets clumped up. You can follow up with some Black Hole Chronosphere or something. Still a very useful spell. Probably more balanced this way. Almost done with the heroes. Actually, I am done with the heroes. I'm not going to talk about anything with these guys. Great. Yes, okay. Now with the items. Very, very cool stuff happening. Items, we do have a few new items. So first item is Fairy Fire. New consumable item. It's basically like the Enchanted Mango. So as a recap, the mango, let's see, reminder, mango plus 1 HP regen and consumed for 150 mana. So in this case, you plus 2 damage and you consume for 75 HP. So kind of similar concept in those like, I think Ice Frog wants to give us more choice in starting items instead of just the regular, like, I'm going to buy tangos, I'm going to buy some branches. That's what everyone does. So now these are definitely, like, they cost 75 gold. These are definitely starting items. You consume them when you need to. They're like instant salves. It'll add to your damage. Like you're fighting with it, plus 2 damage, and then suddenly you restore 75 HP. Like doesn't even tick up, right? Salve and Tango all have to tick up. This is instant. Same with the mana, right? It's instant. So I think it's great. Just buy a bunch of these. Like, I think it's good that we're adding this type of item in the game. Dragonlance. The neatest thing about Dragonlance is that it adds attack range. 130 attack range. 2 range heroes only. So I think this is neat. It adds strength, which a lot of range heroes are usually, say, like agi heroes. But strength is always good because you definitely need some more tankiness. It adds attack speed, it adds damage. I think this is great. And later on, you can work these into other items. Definitely, right? So, yeah, like Ogre Club, you can make Ags with that. Quarterstaff, you can make Oblivion, sound stick with it, like, because it can be disassembled. So I think this is a good addition. I think I really like the Dragonlance. I really like the add attack range mechanic. Aetherlance, basically like a Dragonlance, but for spellcasters. So it'll increase your spell damage and your cast range. And it affects distance-related spells like Venomous Gale, but does not affect AoE spells like Poison Nova. So that's pretty neat too. I'm interested to see if maybe its interactions with someone like Earth Spirit. I mean, sorry, not Earth Spirit. Oh, Earth Spirit too, I guess. But I was thinking Earth Shaker. Both ES, I get mixed up. Earth Shaker, if your fissure increases, or Jakira, your ice path, like increases that distance there. So this seems like actually a pretty neat item to get. Energy booster, Ring of Health, and Cloak. So I mean, cloak is always a good like cloak is always a weird. It's good item. It's weird because you're when you after you get it, you're not sure if you should upgrade that to a Hood of Defiance. So if you don't want to, you can get an Netherlands now. Um, Good an energy booster. Like these are things that any Intel hero usually it's good to have. You know? Iron Talon. This is kind of neat. Quelling Blade Ring of Protection recipe. So it's Quelling Blade with armor. So, but it's kind of neat that it lets you target a non-player enemy unit and remove 40% of their current HP. Good for jungling. It's definitely a jungling item. Very, very good. Item changes. So I didn't write down too much stuff. A major change though is that okay. I did write down Hood of Defiance has a new active. It's basically like a little pipe of insight, but only for yourself. It's not AOE casted. And as a recap, the pipe has 12 seconds of duration and soaks up 400 magic damage. And the Hood of Defiance now, by itself, has 12-second duration, the same as Pipe of Insight, and 325 magical damage. So this is actually really, it's already a really good item. It's definitely just added a buff to the item. From here, like I mean, if everyone's focusing on you with their Laguna Blades and shit, you might not want to upgrade to a Pipe of Insight. So I think that's a good change. Flying Courier price change. I think regular Courier price changed. Yeah, so regular Courier price change. So I see that it's basically a buff to supports because on top of Courier prices changing, wards. Let me scroll down to wards. Also give more money. Experience bounty increase from 50 to 100. Not more money, but more experience. So, and usually the people dewarding are supports, right? So I think generally, you know, buffing supports is a good thing. Another thing is that now iron branches. So a lot of time you'll hold two branches at the beginning of the game, and you end up either making them into a magic stick, or you sell or drop your branches off when you go to Roshan or something. So now your iron branches, you can actually do something with them if you don't want to make your magic stick. You can plant them in the ground, planting a happy little tree. Definitely a reference to Bob Ross. And yeah, it'll be a tree. So I'm interested in seeing the mechanics there. Okay, like you can eat it with a tango. That's one of the mechanics. Eating it with a tango will actually grant you double here, boosted tangos. Eating it with a tango will actually grant you double the HP duration. So you actually end up with double the amount of HP that you otherwise would have originally gotten. But another neat mechanic with it is I'm interested in seeing. It says a happy little tree. How big is this tree, and does it also block vision? Right? Like, can you plant it and kind of juke around it? Can you go into like a juking spot and plant it so that you actually block the enemy? If they don't have tangos or anything, you can effectively completely block yourself off, or trap enemies. Um, so I'm very interested in seeing mechanics like that happening. Um, yeah, what if you buy like 6 iron branches and you like chop them, right? Like I don't know, just very neat things. And with timber saw, what if you throw in your iron branch and then chain to it? So we'll see how that works out. We'll see if they they're pathable. We'll see if you can juke behind them, like the block vision and things like that. Uh, all the boots got like 5 movement speed change, like reduced. I don't know why. That's a pretty major thing because it affects all boots and everyone gets boots. It affects everyone. Soak of Deceit cost reduced. So it's another buff to supports, right? Like I mean, yeah, supports. Seems like all support items are kind of costing less money. Yeah, a lot of other minor changes, but I think that's all that I want to mention. Oh, that was long. I don't know how long that took, but I am exhausted after that patch analysis. And nobody is watching my stream anymore. Thank you for your support, fellas. Okay, well, that's that for my amateur 6.86 patch analysis. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.